What happens when the house lights go down on a life you used to know like the back of your hand? When the crowd still remembers you as a comet, but the world now asks you to explain the shape of the fall? Picture Antonio Brown, bright, restless at the edge of headlines, and then imagine the blink. Dubai to New Jersey. Extradition papers, a courtroom calendar that used to be a locker room chalk talk. The image is small and terrible. A man in cuffs on an airport tarmac, the noise of a life turned procedural. The Washington Post in French phrases. He used to be a sound in motion, roots, jukes, the sudden silence of a defender who misread his feet. For a decade, he lived inside the narrow, electric world of the NFL. Pittsburgh, touchdown after touchdown, 7 Pro Bowls, a Super Bowl ring. Then his exits became louder than his plays. A walk off the field here, a legal scramble there, a public life that seemed to fray in slow motion. Tonight's chapter is one of the loudest. Extradited from Dubai to face an attempted murder charge connected to a chaotic night outside a celebrity boxing event in Miami this spring. The allegation is stark and specific. The images that followed were grainy, viral, and immediate. AP News. But this isn't a clip reel. This is a slow, complicated human thing. The event in May, a late-night fight promoted by an influencer, people in the crowd, the kind of place where fame and risk orbit each other, ended with gunshots and an accusation that would not evaporate. Witnesses and footage tied Brown to the scene. A scuffle, a gun taken from a security officer, a shot fired, a man grazed. The warrant later asked that he post bond and remain under house arrest. Instead, the story bird-flied into international jurisdictions and then came home again by force of law. Imagine being pulled across continents not by choice, but by paper, signed and stamped by strangers who treat your life as a docket to be processed. The Washington Post. There are faces in this piece you don't see just by reading the legal headline. There's the man who says he was grazed by a bullet, the one who claims a pendant was never returned, the security officers who swore they saw a gun change hands. There are also the bystanders, fans at a spectacle, influencers filming for clout, whose phones became evidence and who now watch footage on loop like a collective memory. These are messy, human intersections, arguments about stolen jewelry, claims and counterclaims, a scene where adrenaline, wealth, and reputation combine into a combustible mix, MiamiHerald.com. And then there is Brown himself, a man who has lived in public since his teenage highlights and who now must live in a different kind of public. Legal custody, booking photos, names in police reports. You don't need to romanticize him to see the tragedy. He's a performer who transformed near mythic speed into sustained celebrity, who kept reinventing himself as the world watched. When the lights leave the field, the reapers in suits and uniforms move in. Lawyers, prosecutors, detectives. They ask for proof and motive and timelines. The rest of us fill in the blanks with speculation because we are not used to sitting with ambiguity. People.com. There's a theater to the extradition itself. Think of the logistics. U.S. Marshals coordinating with foreign police, the paperwork that spans time zones, the quiet intensity of agents executing a warrant on foreign soil. It looks detached when you read about it, but it happens to a person. He's moved by bureaucratic momentum, flights, cuffs, a short ride into an unfamiliar jail that will hold him until Miami is ready to take him back. For someone known for movement and velocity, being handled like a case file is an odd kind of stillness. CBS News. And then, as always, the public reacts. Fans take sides with the posture of lifelong loyalty or swift repudiation. Pundits dust off old controversies and build new theories. People replay the old tape of his on-field brilliance beside the newer clips of arrests and arrests avoided and disputes unresolved. In that roar, nuance gets crowded out. Yet something else hangs. The legal principle that an allegation is not a conviction, that a story on a timeline is not the final sentence of a life. Courtrooms are meant to be slow and deliberate. The internet is not. The collision between those paces feels jarring, almost cruel. The Washington Post. There is also the part about accountability and culture. Brown's case is not just his alone. It is a mirror back to a sport and a country that sometimes celebrates brilliance while tolerating turbulence. Fans who idolize plays must reckon with the cost of hero worship when it goes wrong. Leagues and teams talk about conduct, about representation and responsibility, but those are abstractions until you see the human consequences. A victim in a hospital, a community with a memory of gunfire, a family whose relative says he was unjustly accused. The system will have to parse motive, evidence, and intent. That parsing will be messy, juvenile on TV, careful in the judges' chambers. AP News. Yet amid the headlines, there are quieter questions that matter more than the next scrolling thread. What does justice look like here? Is it closure for the person hurt? Is it an honest airing of facts? Is it fairness for a man who once made people stand up from their seats and shout? These questions do not live in bite-sized tweets. They live in depositions and cross-examinations in the hours defense teams and prosecutors spend with evidence and timelines. Those hours are where truth tries to anchor itself to fact. The Washington Post. And finally, the human end of the tale, the possibility of redemption or ruin. Brown's story is not a single chapter. It is a string of them. Some are shine, some are chaos, some are legal knots. Extradition does not mean guilt. It means a trial, the slow, often unsatisfying engine of legal truth. For those who cheered his catches, it will be disorienting to watch the man who once sprinted past defenders now move through courtrooms. For those hurt or fearful, the trial may be the only path to answers. For journalists, it's months of coverage. For family and friends, it is private pain. For Brown, it is the other side of celebrity, the one where mistakes and alleged crimes are tallied against a life once measured in catches and yards. People.com. In the end, there's an image that feels true whether you love him or not. A man who used to be defined by his motion, now moving through a system that asks him to stand and answer. The lights have shifted from stadium to courtroom. The audience has changed. The lines are measured in paragraphs in legal filings instead of first down markers. What happens next will be decided in rooms that prefer patience to passion. And whatever the outcome, the story will be another reminder that glory and downfall often sit closer than we like to admit. For now, there is only a waiting room of headlines, a ledger of allegations, and the slow hum of bureaucracy that will carry a man who once outran defenders across continents and back again, not for the next highlight, but for an answer. Imagine a highlight reel that ends with handcuffs. On a night that began like another celebrity spectacle, lights, cameras, a boxing ring sponsored by influencers, the story has folded into something darker and quieter. Antonio Brown, once one of the NFL's most electrifying playmakers, is back on American soil and facing a second-degree attempted murder charge. He was located in Dubai, taken into custody by U.S. Marshals, and flown to New Jersey before officials confirmed he'll be moved to Miami to face the case tied to a shooting outside a boxing event in May. Reuters. What makes this more than a tabloid sidebar is the gravity of the allegation. Authorities say that during an altercation on May 16th, after a chaotic scene outside the celebrity boxing event promoted by Adin Ross, Brown allegedly grabbed a handgun and fired 2 shots at a man he had been in conflict with, striking the man with a grazing wound to the neck. The man, identified in reports as a jeweler who says he's known Brown for years, later told police he was struck near the neck. Surveillance footage and witness accounts prompted a warrant and a prolonged investigation. AP News. This arrest is the highest profile entry in a long line of off-field controversies that shadowed Brown's career after elite-level production on the field. By the time his last NFL snap came in 2021, his resume already included multiple All-Pro nods, a Super Bowl ring, and more than a decade of highlight reel catches. But Brown's name has also been linked to fights, allegations of violence, civil suits, and social media stunts that repeatedly made headlines. Those elements, brilliance and volatility, collide in this moment. AP News. The legal mechanics matter. The warrant reportedly called for a $10,000 bond and initially suggested house arrest until trial, a strange contrast to the severity of an attempted murder allegation, but Brown never turned himself in when the warrant was first issued. Once authorities confirmed his location overseas, U.S. Marshals coordinated his apprehension and return. Now that he's been booked in Essex County Jail, prosecutors in Miami will decide how to proceed